Look, maybe you better tell me what this is about.
Well, ma'am, there have been allegations made by several of Kip's classmates that you and Kip Bauschmeyer were lovers.
A high school is a rumor mill, detective. That was one of many stories making the rounds. But I can assure you, that's all it is, a rumor.
Mrs. Gill, the people who are making these allegations are not saying they heard you were having sex with the boy. They're saying they went over to his house a couple of weekends in a row and watched you have sex with him.
Look, I've been in trouble before, Mr. Turner. Got a few priors, but this time I swear they got the wrong guy.
I got the picture. Can you tell me how the window of Dr. Frank's Mercedes came to be broken?
I have no idea. I think I was just the first guy the cops saw when they got to the scene. Story of my life. Wrong place, the wrong time.
I'll call the DA's office, see what they're offering.
Well, you got my number, right?
I'll be in touch. Everyone's entitled to a defense, Doreen. Oh, I need you to hold down the fort for a couple hours. I'm having my boat painted. I want to be there when they take her out of the water.
Wait. Roger Gill just called. He wants some representation for his wife.
Who?
Honestly, Owen, you really should start reading the paper again.
Get my ex-wife on the phone.
Paulette and Kip had been lovers for some time, or so the story goes. Rumors started circulating, and eventually the boys, Garrett Evans, Paul Preston, and Stuart Cardale, confronted Kip about it. Kip told them the rumors were true, and when they didn't believe him, they decided to prove it to them by arranging for them to come over and watch him having sex with her.
This kid sounds like some victim. Why'd he kill himself?
Nobody seems to know. But the night of the funeral, the boys told their parents what they'd seen. The parents called the police. The school fired Mrs. Gill a month later. Our paper broke the story.
You say that with some pride, Roberta.
Well, it's a big story, Owen. I mean, you know. Attractive young teacher, secret trysts witnessed by the sons of prominent citizens, suicide. Why the sudden interest?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose I like a good scandal as much as the next guy.
No, you don't. You're her lawyer, aren't you?
Well, it's not 100% yet. I'm meeting her and her husband tonight.
Well, when they're ready to do an interview, I want to be your first call. I'm not your ex-wife for nothing.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but I have a feeling this one's going to get settled quick.
Are you sure about that? We hear some pretty important people have an interest in seeing this go all the way.
Like who?
You know, Kip is from Briarcliff. The people out there have a lot of political pull.
I'm sure the district attorney's office will put up a big show of outrage, but at the end of the day, this is a rape case where the victim can't testify and the accused is a 28-year-old female. They have bigger fish to fry. Of course, the press thinks she did it.
Well, I suppose we do. I mean, the boys all pass polygraphs, you know? Besides, why would anyone make up a story like that?
I've had the car a long time, but she's got real low mileage.
I can't interest you in a trade-in.
No, we don't need two cars. Besides, my wife can't drive a stick.
Well, she looks real clean. Tell you what, I'll grab my jacket, we'll take her for a spin.
We got to be at the lawyer's at 5. You represented a guy at work on a DWI. This guy said he was definitely over the limit, but somehow Owen Turner got the whole thing thrown out of court. What?
The guy recognized me.
You want to blow him off? We'll take the car down somewhere else and sell it.
No, what I really want is for you not to sell the car. Why don't we meet with this lawyer first and see how much it's going to be?
I already asked. It's $5,000 just to walk through the door. So.
You ready to go, Mr. Gill?
Paulette, the car doesn't mean anything to me.
I know that's not true.
I'll be right back.
For those of you who have never had class with me before, let me tell you what you can expect. This is junior English. We're going to be studying some of the great works of literature.
Excuse me, Miss Gill. This here's Kip Bauschmeyer.
Hey, Kip.
Oh, no. Here's trouble.
Nice to see you too, Patsy. Hi. Just go find a seat. Go, now.
I think I'm in love.
I wonder if they'll like those jokes on unemployment, Bauschmeyer. If I were you, Mrs. Gill, I'd separate him from his cronies. He's a lot less funny without an audience.
you going?
You want me to move, right?
I was just explaining my philosophy of teaching, Kip, and part of it is that every kid that walks through that door starts off with an A. That means that at this moment, you're one of my best students.
Law offices? I'm sorry, Mr. Turner's with a client at the moment.
Mrs. Gill, on Friday you will be charged with 2 counts of sexual assault.
Am I gonna have to spend time in jail?
You will be out in an hour, tops. Now, the good news is their case sounds very weak. I gather they don't have a shred of physical evidence, and obviously the victim can't testify, so...
That's just what the other lawyer said going into the school board hearing.
Mr. Gill, I understand you were out of town on the nights in question. Is that right?
That's right. I have National Guard duty 2 weekends a month.
I do have an alibi for one of those nights. I was out to dinner with Patsy Newbeck.
Well, who's that, a girlfriend?
Another one of my students.
I understand you also spent some time with Kip outside of the schoolroom. Would you describe him as promiscuous?
What the hell kind of question is that?
An important one. Promiscuity can be a defense on sexual assault.
That's going to be your defense? She did it, but it's okay because he wasn't a virgin?
Mr. Gill, look.
No, you look. I thought I explained this over the phone. My wife didn't do this. These people are on a witch hunt. And we need a lawyer who's willing to take them on.
Mr. Gill, I understand that you have both been through hell. Now, if you want something for your pain and suffering, I suggest you contact a civil attorney. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. My job is to see your wife acquitted by whatever means the law allows.
It's been really tough on Roger. After I was fired, he had to drop out of school and get a job. And the publicity has... It's been really hard to take.
Well, I can tell you it's only going to get worse. That's why I'd like to explore the possibility of a plea bargain.
But I'm innocent. You didn't ask me that, but I am.
Sometimes I think those of us in law enforcement can lose track of what's really important. Like being able to send your kids off to school without worrying about them being molested. So am I concerned that the prosecution of Paulette Gill is a waste of time and money? No. In fact, I would say the message I'm getting is quite the opposite. Pam, if you have any follow-up questions, come on.
Thank you.
Owen, do you know Earl Cleaver? He heads our sex crimes division.
By reputation.
Your reputation precedes you also, Mr. Turner. Shall we find a room?
I understand your office initially declined to press charges?
Only because of the difficulties associated with prosecuting without Kip's testimony. Since then, new evidence has surfaced that convinced us that this prosecution was warranted.
I was just telling Earl what a zoo it was this morning.
Given the nature of this case, I think it's safe to say we should all anticipate intense media scrutiny.
Yes, well, it's good to see you're doing all you can to minimize that, Earl. Given all the hoopla, I'm surprised you didn't assign a second chair.
Oh, Hugh is the second chair. I'm the lead prosecutor on this.
You mean you personally?
Hugh is a fine prosecutor, but the DA and I both felt that given the public interest in this case, the most experienced hand should be put on. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we're here to avoid going to trial. Here's our offer. She pleads guilty to 1 felony count. We drop the other charge. We recommend that she does 2 years probation. And we'd also want some guarantee that she never teaches school again.
Are you serious?
Oh, it's a fair offer. If this goes to trial, we'll be asking for the maximum on both counts. She could do 4 years.
Oh, come on. There's no evidence that this relationship, if it even existed, was anything but consensual.
That's not informed consent, is it? We like our case, Mr. Turner. We have 3 eyewitnesses. These boys are nice kids. Good, solid families, and nothing to gain by lying. Sure impressed the hell out of the grand jury.
There's also the statement she gave the police on him. She acknowledges she was in the house twice in November to help him with some personal problems.
She did it. We know she did it, and it's going to be easy to prove.
Well, I still can't take her an offer like that. She claims she's innocent.
I guess we'll see in court. Is he any good?
He was outstanding. Hasn't had a lot of trial work, though, lately.
Burnt out?
Miss Gill. I saw you on TV again.
Yeah, I'm getting to be a real celebrity, Danny. I'll tell you, it's not much fun.
Well, at least you look good. I mean, that's something, right?
What's with the books? Don't tell me you're back in summer school.
Afraid so. You all know what happens. The weather turns nice, suddenly my grades go south. You know, I was gonna ask you, you think you could help me with my homework again this summer?
Oh, gee, Danny, I don't think that's such a hot idea.
Danny!
Oh, hell.
Get in the house.
All I was doing was talking to
Get in the
her.
house. Don't talk back to me. I will deal with you later. I told you to leave him alone.
He talked to me first.
I don't care if he did talk to you. Nothing says you gotta answer. This is my
What the hell's
child.
going on?
It's okay, Roger.
Your wife was talking to my boy. I told her last time I would call the police, and I will.
Well, maybe what your boy needs is a
Roger,
leash.
that's not necessary.
Look, you're on my property, lady. Now get the hell off before I call the cops.
You know something? I cannot wait until they lock you up. People like you do not belong in decent company.
Roger.
You get in the house.
I wish you wouldn't get into it with her, Roger. You know what she's like. Anyway, I'm glad you're home. I'm dying to call Owen.
Trial starts in 8 weeks.
You called him?
That's right. I knew he wasn't gonna be able to make any deals. I figured I'd spare you the grief.
I don't want to be spared, all right? Roger, I'm the one who's going on trial.
You sure seem relaxed about it.
What is that supposed to mean?
Well, you're talking to Danny again. Despite what his mother told you, despite what I told you, you're talking to him again.
Well, he initiated it.
The law says he can't initiate anything, Paulette. The law says that you're the adult. Whatever happens is your fault.
I'm not going to stop being a human being because of what somebody might think.
All right, have it your way, Paulette. Just remember those people whose opinions you're so blithely dismissing? That's who's going to be sitting in that jury box.
I hope your coach isn't going to give you grief about missing football practice.
He doesn't have much choice. If I don't get my grades up, I won't be on the team.
You know, Kip, you have a real flair for language. Spelling, however.
I usually getting off of practice about this time. Noticed you're always still here.
A lot of kids need extra help this term.
Your husband doesn't mind? I mean, if I were married to a woman who looked like you, I'd want you home. Not hanging out with a bunch of jerky teenagers.
Roger's in grad school. He spends most of his nights at the library. You know, Kip, I encourage you guys to say whatever's on your mind. But I think some things should be off limits.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Gill. I meant it as a compliment, really.
I'm still your teacher, and I'm a married woman. Don't compliment me too much.
Hi, Miss Newbeck, Patsy Newbeck.
Yeah?
My name is Fred Cobb. I'm an investigator working for Paulette Gill. I was wondering if I might ask you a few questions. Mrs. Gill was telling me that you and she had dinner on November 17th last year.
We had dinner together lots of nights. There's not one that really sticks out. Sorry.
Miss Newbeck, Mrs. Gill also told me that when she was fired, you went to the school principal and told him that these boys had to be lying. You think we could talk a little bit about that?
All right. Come in for a moment.
Thank you.
Maria, por favor. Look, it's true that I went to the principal, but just to say that I didn't believe these guys. I never said that I had any first-hand information about what they might or might not have seen.
But you did have dinner with her on one of the nights in question?
I might have. I just don't remember. I'm sorry, Mr. Cobb. I don't think I'm going to be of much help.
What's going on here? Who are you?
Fred Cobb. Mr. Newbeck, is it?
He's a private investigator for Paulette, Daddy.
I think you'd better go. You have no business sneaking around the neighborhood trying to catch people off guard.
But I invited him in.
Stay out of this. My attorney is Buddy Reston of Reston and Myers. Yeah, write that down. You have any more questions for my daughter, you give him a call.
Oh, and thanks for your time, Miss Newbeck.
Let me have Evie Bauschmore, please. Evie, Don Newbeck. Listen, I think it might be a good idea if we got everybody together.
Hey, let's not overreact here. It's not like she wasn't going to put on a defense.
So I spoke to Earl Cleaver, let him know what's going on. I also spoke to my own attorney, who tells me that we're under no legal obligation to cooperate.
What about witnesses planning on testifying for the prosecution?
Makes no difference. Stewie and Garrett are under 18. They can't even be contacted without your consent.
But Paul just turned 18, Don.
He still has to give his consent, Margie, unless her attorney gets a court order, which Cleaver thought was very unlikely. Would you excuse me for just a moment?
I'm so sorry you all got dragged into this.
Evie, you put that thought out of your head. Garrett has told me many times that he has no regrets.
And Stewie and Paul feel the same way.
Hey, where are you going?
Out.
Without saying hello to our guests?
I'm in a hurry.
Suit yourself. But the problem will still be here when you get back.
Look, Daddy, for the last time, I don't know anything about Paulette and Kip.
I think you do know something. The way you and that Gill woman palled around, hell, you probably know everything. Patsy, do you understand that it's not just about Kip's family anymore? Do you know that if Mrs. Gill is found not guilty, she can turn around and sue the boys and their families, our friends, for everything they own? And there's a bigger picture here, Patsy. There really is. Somebody has got to protect our way of life from sleazy influences like that. Do you understand that you go to a public school that is better and safer than most private ones? You think that happens by accident?
Well, if it happened in Briarcliff, Daddy, I'm sure you had something to do with it.
Owen?
Hey, Fredo. How'd it go this week?
Same as last. Must have talked to about 24 kids, some of the teachers, too. Nobody knows anything. Did you get through the DA's file yet?
Almost. And I'll tell you, they're not having the same trouble we are. I've defended murderers who didn't have this many people saying bad things about them. Mrs. Gill frequently wore tight-fitting sweaters to school where you could see her nipples. Mrs. Gill had parties for students in her home where she served margaritas. Mrs. Gill gave Kip BD. Roger Gill told me this thing was shaping up as a real witch hunt.
So what now?
Once you get past all the hearsay and innuendo, Cleaver's whole case really comes down to the testimony of these boys. I think our defense has to be that they are just flat out lying.
Well, what's their motive?
Well, their friend had just killed himself. Somebody had to take the heat, right?
Yeah, these boys are real Eagle Scouts, Owen. Even if they were looking for a scapegoat, it's hard to believe they'd commit perjury to do it.
Kip died on Thursday. His funeral was on Monday. That gave him 3 days to cook this thing up. From now on, I want you to see what you can find out about where they were that weekend.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I haven't seen you this worked up in quite a while, Owen.
You know, I don't mind a fair fight, but these rich folks are ganging up on our client, Fred. That irritates me.
They may be ganging up on her, but that doesn't make her innocent.
You have doubts about that?
She seems like a real nice lady. On the other hand, it's been my experience that there's usually at least a little fire at the center of this much smoke.
I don't want you to be concerned about this lack of cooperation. It's not unusual. And Cobb will keep talking to kids right through the trial.
Well, what about Patsy?
She wasn't too helpful. But calling her presented certain problems anyway.
Like what?
She's not a perfect alibi. You could have had dinner with Patsy and then gone over to Kip's. And I think we want to soft pedal your extracurricular relationship with these kids as much as possible. Now, a number of people have commented on Kip's flirtatiousness with you. I'd like to know a little more about that.
It was strictly a teasing kind of thing. For example, there was one day last term. We hadn't really spent much time together, so you can imagine my surprise when he blurts out,
I would kill the guy who would make love to you.
"What is that supposed to mean?"
That's my new pickup line, Mrs. Gill. What do you think?
I think a girl your age would probably prefer a less direct approach.
Guess I'll have to keep practicing.
Yeah.
You never reported this behavior to anyone?
If I reported every boy for every comment he'd made, I would have spent half my time in the detention office.
I understand. But subsequently, you went to his home alone in the evening. Now, the prosecution can argue that you were responding to a sexual invitation from him.
What nobody has mentioned yet is that there was another side to Kip. When he was alone with me, he was completely different. Serious, sensitive. That was the side I was interested in. I don't think he believed me.
It's not his job to believe you. That pickup line business, you never told me about that either. You never told me he said anything that overt.
Didn't I?
No?
I guess I was just embarrassed. I'm sorry. Listen, it's still light. You want to stop and get some coffee or ice cream or something?
No, Paulette. I just want to get home.
This is Jake McGee here at the San Diego County Courthouse, where the crowd is building on this the first day of Paulette Gill's sex trial.
The doors of the courthouse will soon be opening. This is Mary Kay Andrade reporting live from the San Diego County Courthouse.
This is Joe Friedman. Okay, here's a sound check. On this the first day of the sensational Paulette Gill sexual assault trial.
Relax, Roger. We have plenty of time.
I'm gonna wait outside.
So today's a big day, huh?
Yeah, we'll be leaving for court soon.
Good luck.
Thank you. So how's school?
Well, actually, I'm running for student council. Can you believe it?
Danny, that's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, it's just for class rep, but, actually, I gotta give a speech this afternoon. I had to come up with a platform and everything. You want to take a look at it?
Oh. Now's not really a good time. Besides, your mom would kill me.
She already left for work. Please, Miss Gill? It'll only take a second.
It's great.
That may be too long, though.
Oh, I like this.
And then if I could do
Paulette, for crying out loud!
It's all right, Roger. His mom's at work. I'll just be 1 minute.
But you know what's great is that you're here with Joe right here, so it lightens everything up. And here with one also. That's really good.
Kids really respond to her, huh?
Oh, yeah. My wife loves teaching Owen. She's got a real gift for it.
Raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the record?
My name is Evie Bauschmoyer. I live on Bridle Ridge Road with my husband Wayne and my daughter Tracy. My son Kip also lived there with us.
Mrs. Bauschmoyer, I know this is painful, but would you describe how you first learned that Kip had killed himself?
I'd picked my daughter Tracy up from school. I had just finished grocery shopping.
Tracy? Is your brother in his room? That boy skipped school again. I don't know what I'm gonna do with him.
Tracy? Tracy?
Mommy, what's happened to Kip?
He's sick, honey. Come with me. Tracy, now! Call a doctor. I called my office. I asked them to notify the authorities. I needed to deal with my daughter right then. And then I phoned my husband.
Shortly after this, people began to arrive?
Yes. By then, it had been on the news.
Did you see the defendant, Paulette Gill, at your house that night?
Yes, I did.
And at Kip's funeral the following Monday, did you see her there too?
Not at the funeral, no. But afterwards, there was an open house.
I'm Paulette Gill, Mrs. Bauschmoyer. I had Kip for English.
Well, thank you for coming. I know Kip wasn't very popular with his teachers.
Well, maybe that's because they didn't really know him. I can tell you he was very special to me.
She told you he was very special to her?
That's what she said.
No further questions.
Mrs. Bauschmoyer, isn't it true you blame this woman for the death of your son?
I wouldn't say that, no. Naturally, we wonder what influence she may have had.
Isn't it also true that when the DA's office initially declined to file charges, you called persistently until that decision was reversed?
My son had been molested, Mr. Turner.
How do you know?
I have the word of people I trust. Plus, my own impressions of her conduct at the open house.
I believe you said she came by to pay her respects, told you she taught your son, liked him personally, and gave you a hug.
That's correct.
What is it exactly you find so peculiar about that, ma'am?
It was obvious she thought of herself more as a friend than a teacher.
So you find it strange that she liked Kip enough to consider him a friend?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained. Mrs. Bauschmoyer, there were other teachers at Kip's funeral, weren't there?
At the funeral, not at the open house.
On the nights of November 17 and 24, do you have any knowledge of Paulette Gill coming to your home?
Well, Kip's room was at the other end of the house. We wouldn't have any idea what was going on in there.
You had a dog. Wouldn't your dog bark if a stranger came to your home at night?
I suppose she would.
Did you recall her barking on either of those nights?
No.
You think they'd at least send someone out to let us know what's going on, you know? I don't know how you guys can all be so casual about this.
Paul, come on, all right? We're all in the same boat.
Yeah. You know, it's starting to sound like you're sorry you're even here. I'm not saying that. Just real stressed out by all this, you know?
Okay. Look, let's just not forget why we're here, all right?
Yeah, we're here for him, man.
That's right. We're here for Kip.
Come on. I don't believe it, not for a second.
You saw how she was with me just now. The same way in class, always looking at me. Ask Paul.
She's like that with everybody.
No, she's
right.
not. Look, I knew she was interested in me from the beginning. One night I hit on her, and she's like, oh no, I'm a teacher and I'm married. So I figured I was wrong. Then a few weeks later, she asked me to go have coffee with her. Starts telling me about how her husband doesn't understand her. That was a month ago, boys. I've been having her ever since.
Come on.
Look, I know it's hard to believe,
Well,
but
it's impossible to believe. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This time, you gotta put your money where your mouth is.
I'm looking for Leland Gruen.
Yeah, who are you?
Name's Fred Cobb. I'm a private investigator working on the Paulette Gill case. You Mr. Gruen?
Yeah, that's me, but I don't know what I could tell you because I only went to school there for about a year.
Okay, thanks.
Say, how'd you happen to come talk to me?
Mrs. Gill gave me a list of students she thought might have something good to say about her.
Mrs. Gill was all right to me. She tried to get me to stay in school. I wouldn't want to testify or anything. Come on. These other guys, Garrett, Paul, and Stewie, were part of the most popular crowd in school, and Kip had been part of that crew too, but there was some kind of falling out. And it was around this time that we all started hearing rumors about him and Mrs. Gill. Then Kip kills himself. And all I know is that the night after Kip died, Garrett, Paul, and Stewie and a bunch of other kids went out to the ice house.
The ice house. What's that?
It's this factory out near Miramar, and kids from school used to go out there and party, and I heard that's where they decided to make this up.
I talked to a lot of kids this summer. Why haven't I heard about this before?
Oh, I know I wasn't in any rush to come forward. Personally, I don't care what people think, but my parents had just joined a country club.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you felt that you were discouraged from coming forward?
You guys really are in the dark about this, aren't you? Kip's family and the families of the other three, they've had their own investigation going on since last year. And in Briarcliff, the word's out. You're either with them or against them.
I honestly don't see any grounds for delay, Mr. Turner.
Your Honor, I now have reason to believe that much of this new evidence that Mr. Cleaver claimed as his reason for filing charges comes from a group of citizens who have a vested interest in the outcome of this case.
As I understand it, all those people are doing are trying to protect themselves from any possible civil action from Mrs. Gill.
There's nothing illegal about that. And I hardly think the existence of this one boy proves widespread coercion, Mr. Turner.
Your Honor, this one boy's statement alone raises questions about the credibility of the rest of the boys who are going to be testifying here.
What possible reason could I have for filing charges if I had any questions about their credibility?
Well, it got Evie Bauschmeyer off your back, didn't it, Earl? The way I figure it, this trial's a win-win proposition for you.
My job is simple. I look at the evidence and I look at the statute. If I get a match, I prosecute.
Your request for continuance is denied. The only thing that's relevant here is where the defendant was on the nights of November 17th and 24th. And that's what we're going to find out right now. Proceed with your witness.
Mr. Preston, what was your reaction when Kip Bauschmeyer first told you of his relationship with Mrs. Gill?
It just didn't seem possible. I mean, I'd seen the way they were in class, and I knew she liked him. But I still thought, she's a teacher, no way.
How did Kip respond to your disbelief, Mr. Preston?
He said, I guess I'm just going to have to prove it to you then.
Let's talk about the weekend of November 17th. You and Garrett had been over there during the day?
Yes, sir. Kip told us that she was coming over that night and asked if we would go help set up his room so that we could see.
And what were some of these preparations?
His window was kind of high up, so we had to stack some paving stones to stand on. And he had these curtains that we had to rig so that we could see better.
And what happened after you finished setting up his room, Paul?
We went home. And then later I picked Garrett up and we drove back over to Kip's. I knew what kind of car Mrs. Gill drove because I'd seen it a bunch of times at school. It was parked right where Kip had said it would be. Now, at this point, we're thinking maybe she's just over there talking to him, right? But on the way up to the house, I started to get cold feet. I said I didn't want to go, so Garrett went first. I was scared we'd be caught. And then after a minute, he comes back and he says, somebody's about to do something to somebody. And that's when I went up to the window.
When you first looked through the window, what did you observe, Paul? Exactly.
I saw my best friend, Kip Bauschmeyer, and my teacher, Mrs. Gill, having sex.
Order! Order!
Your witness, Mr. Turner.
Mr. Preston, yesterday you described preparations you made in order to better see Kip and the defendant having sex. For example, you stacked up some stepping stones. Do you recall why you did that?
It made it easier to see.
Your Honor, may I? Would you step over here, please? Right here. Now, I want you to imagine that the jury box is Kip's bed. Earlier, some photos were introduced indicating that the bedroom window is 5 feet from the base of the house. How tall are you, Paul?
I'm 5'10".
5'10". Now, I want you to look at the jury while I measure out 5 feet.
Yeah, Garrett's shorter, I think.
Actually, he's an inch taller, but okay. I'll measure out 2 more inches. I'd like the record to reflect that I measured out 5 feet 2 inches, and yet Mr. Preston can still see the jury easily over the top. Can't you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You can sit back down. Now, when you were before the grand jury, you testified that after Kip and Mrs. Gill had made love, he turned the lights off to signal that they were finished. Do you recall that being part of the plan?
Yes, that's right. He said, when I turn the lights off, you guys have to leave.
So what you're saying is they made love with the lights on, and then when they were ready to go, he turned the lights off and they got dressed in the dark.
Yeah, well, maybe a lot of the stuff we did wasn't necessary, but it's not like any of us had any experience with this kind of thing.
That'd be one explanation. Another might be that you guys made up the story and then never got around to going over to Kip's house to see if it checked out.
That's not true. And we never discussed this among ourselves until after we gave our statements to the school.
Have you ever heard of a place called the Ice House, Mr. Preston?
Yeah, I've heard of it. It's a place kids from school used to hang out sometimes.
And weren't you hanging out there the weekend after Kip died, along with Garrett Evans, Stuart Cardell, and several others?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I suppose we were. Yeah.
And Kip had just committed suicide, and yet the subject of what you had all witnessed between Kip and Paulette Gill never came up. Is that your testimony, Mr. Preston?
Mr. Cardell, could you please tell us what happened on the weekend of November 24th?
The weekend of November 24th, Paul and I were staying over at Kip's house. His parents had already gone to bed. We were just getting ready to watch a video when the phone rings.
And what time was this?
About 11:30. So Kip's on the phone for a couple minutes. When he gets off, he's got this great big grin on his face. And he says to Paul, it's on again for tonight. At that point, they told me that Mrs. Gill and Kip had sex the weekend before.
And what did you think of all this, Mr. Cardell?
I believed it. I had her as a teacher. You could say I'd seen her in action.
Order. Let's leave the humor to the lawyers, Mr. Cardell. Please proceed.
So anyway, Paul and I go outside to wait. About 10 minutes later, she shows up. I watch for 45 minutes, maybe.
Now, how was Mrs. Gill as a teacher?
She was okay.
She actually went out of her way to give you a lot of extra help, didn't she?
Yeah.
Did she ever make any sexual overtures to you?
No.
So when you say that her actions contributed to your conclusion that Kip and Paul were telling the truth, what are you talking about?
It was just a feeling I got.
After Mrs. Gill left, did you guys talk about what had just happened?
You know, I don't think we ever really talked about it until after we gave our statements to the school.
You mean even at Kip's funeral? And when you were all together the night he died, you didn't talk about it?
I don't believe so.
What about when you were all out at the Ice House, Mr. Cardell?
No.
But you were out at the Ice House together, weren't you?
He's killing us with this Ice House business. Yeah, we were there.
No further questions.
Let's hold Garrett back for now. I want to interview him again. I want you to call Don Newbeck, tell him it's time to fish or cut bait.
Got it. Any redirect, Mr. Cleaver?
Sorry, Your Honor. In view of the hour, Your Honor, the state requests a recess until tomorrow.
You were great today.
Now, that's not just my opinion. The whole press corps is talking about how you're kicking their butts.
Well, it's early yet, but thanks, Bob.
So why the long face?
I guess I'm still bugged by the way Cleaver stood by while the town held its inquisition.
Oh, don't be such a Boy Scout. The people in Briarcliff want justice, and if they're in a position to pull some strings, I say more power to them. That's just how the system operates.
Yeah, well, may I remind you, you and I are part of the system.
Yeah, and I've seen you work that system plenty to put some really awful people back on the street.
Yeah.
Who always says winning is all that matters?
The first day I went to pick them up for court, the boy across the street came over to ask Paulette's help for a project at school. I mean, here she was about to enter the arena, yet she was willing to take the time to help some kid with his homework. That's when I knew. This woman cares too much about teaching to get involved in anything like this.
I think you're being a little naive about her. I mean, even nice people can rationalize almost anything in the name of passion. Look at us.
Roger? Roger?
You know, it occurred to me I haven't cooked for you in ages, so I decided to whip up a special batch of my stir fry. Come here.
This is really sweet of you.
You like it? Sit.
Thank you.
Scoot in. Would you like some champagne, my dear, huh?
Champagne, too?
It's either that or Diet Cranberry juice. Decided to live dangerously.
I really appreciate the thought. But I don't think I could get down a bite of food.
Well, maybe what you need is to work up a little appetite. Huh? Come here. You look beautiful. Oh, stepping on your feet, am I?
I don't feel very attractive right now.
Oh, you are, believe me. It's okay.
I'm really not up for this right now. Roger, please. Please be patient with me.
As the boys' vice principal, it was my decision to transfer Kip Boschmeyer into her class. Miss Gill ran a somewhat informal classroom, but I thought the boy might do better in that environment.
Did he?
At first he did. But then I kept hearing that she was keeping him after class a couple times every week.
Objection! Your Honor, this is blatantly misleading. There is no offer of proof that anything but studying went on at these after-school sessions.
Let me see you two lawyers up here right now. Mr. Cleaver, what is your theory of admissibility on this?
Given her informal manner and her willingness to meet with him one-on-one, Kip no doubt saw these after-school sessions as an open invitation.
To do what? Study?
I'm going to sustain the objection.
As long as we're here, Your Honor, it's my understanding that the testimony of the next three witnesses goes exclusively to the issue of whether or not Mrs. Gill's attire in school was too provocative.
Again, Judge, it's our contention that her relationship with Kip was just part of a whole range of unacceptable conduct.
Perhaps. But I'm not going to allow her to be convicted of sexual assault based on what she wore to work. Now, do you have any other questions for this witness?
No.
Step back. Mr. Garcia, you're excused.
Thank you.
You have any other witnesses you can call at this time?
We do, Your Honor. She's not on our list, having only recently come forward, but she is in the building and ready to testify.
Call your witness, Mr. Cleaver.
The state calls Patricia Newbeck.
Please proceed.
Miss Newbeck, your relationship with the defendant was more than the usual teacher-student relationship, wasn't it?
We were also close friends, yeah.
How did your friendship come about?
At first, it was based on my schoolwork. And then as we discovered we had mutual interests, we started hanging out together outside of school.
You mean you would socialize in each